Hi, I'm Joan from the Gananoque Horticultural Society, and we thought that something that would be interesting for our members and others is on how to divide perennials. Perennials can be divided 2 times of the year, or at least it's best to do it at those times. Spring, late April into about middle end of May, or in the fall. And we're just approaching fall now. Now it is possible to divide them at other times, but you're going to have to give them a bit more care. I have certainly done it in a pinch when I needed to move something. I've done it in July, but you really have to water. This time of the year you're more likely to get rain. The spring is a little bit easier, I find, because your leaves are not up, so it's easier to see the divisions between the fans of a daylily, for example. So today we're going to concentrate on 2 plants, which is daylilies and hostas. I'm going to start with this daylily. Its name is Ida Duke Miles. It's a bright yellow, and it's part of a long line of daylilies that we have planted here about 10 or 12 years ago. And they have expanded and grown into a really stunning group of daylilies. In fact, if you look over here, there's one daylily still blooming, even though this group of daylilies started blooming toward the end of July. So they've been over a month now. So daylilies are fairly easy to divide. I did want to mention one thing first though, and that is the difference between daylilies and lilies. It's something that so many people are confused by, and it all has to do with our English language. We have daylilies, we have lilies. Sounds like the same thing. They both have sort of trumpet-like flowers, but they're really very different. A lily grows from a bulb like this. If you dig it up, this is what you get. You will get a main one, and then you may get offshoots, which will move a little bit away. You have a small number of roots, not much. The flowers of the lilies will last for maybe 4 or 5 days, and you'll often see them in floral arrangements. Daylilies you will virtually never see in a floral arrangement because each bloom only lasts for a day. Its proper name in Latin is hemerocallis, which comes from Greek. Hemera, which means day, and callus, which means beauty. So it's beauty for a day. And truly they are beautiful. They come in every color except true blue: white, red, yellow, purple. There are some that are greenish, so maybe that's a stretch to say that they're green daylilies, but virtually every color of flower that you can imagine. And they grow in roots with large fleshy roots, strappy leaves, very hardy. They can grow in full sun to part shade. They don't like full shade, but part shade certainly. And this is one with a very nice bright yellow flower, and we had decided earlier in the summer that we would like to have some of this variety back further in this garden behind us. And so what I'm going to do is dig up this one. I've already started to make it easier, and then divide it and move it up to the upper garden. So you're going to need a good sized shovel. These have very strong roots. And as I say, I already started this. It would not come out easily like this normally. And I'm going to look for a division between the different fans and see if I can get in there and divide it a little bit like this. There we go. I'm going to need my trowel. The trowel's not going to work. It's going to have to be the shovel. is a good, sturdy 10 or 12-year-old plant. And it does not want to split easily. Okay, I can hear it going in. Okay. So, I've gotten some of the nice big fleshy roots, not maybe as many as I would have liked to. See if I can divide it with my trowel now. When you plant a daylily, you want to make sure you have at least one fan of leaves, and preferably 2 or 3. A daylily with only one fan will probably not bloom the next year. So this one actually has 3 fans here. See, 1, 2, well, that one's separated out on its own, but I'll plant it together. So this is a single fan with some big roots and some small ones. And I am going to cut back the leaves with my pruners. Don't absolutely have to do that, but it makes it a little bit easier when you're planting it. So I'm going to plant these together as one, so we've got at least 3 fans here. So this should bloom next year. And then in this one, I'm going to cut it back as well. You can see the old stalk that we cut back. The flowers on this are large, and the plant blooms for quite a long time. So here we have second plant, lots of small roots, some bigger roots. So we're now going to plant them. Okay, I already dug holes for the daylily. I made it about twice the size of the root ball, and deep enough that it will fit into the hole nicely, but the crowns will be at soil level. What I like to do is put a soil in the center, so there's sort of a mound for the roots to sit on here. Break it all up nicely. I'm just going to see how that looks. Oops, we didn't get all of our leaves. When I was digging this up, by the way, I dug about 6 inches outside of the plant all the way around. Sometimes if it's a smaller plant, you can divide it without digging up the whole thing, but it's more difficult that way, and you're more likely to end up breaking off fans and then losing the whole fan division. I like to really fill up the whole hole with water. I call it puddling in. And so I really fill it up. It's also been a really dry year here, so although we've had some rain lately, it doesn't hurt to give it a really good soaking. I'm gonna have to straighten that up. Give it a little bit more. Should add, when you're doing this, don't wear your best clothes. You will inevitably end up dirty. Can't help. There's a leaf blocking the water flow. Okay, so that's pretty good. I'm going to put the soil back in around it. I want to get rid of any air bubbles in the soil, so I'm going to give it a good press down to try and eliminate anything like that. Try and find all the soil I dug up. And if you notice, there are lots of leaves in this garden, and that's not because we're lazy, it's because we actually want them there. We worked hard to put these leaves back on the soil so that it would keep it moister. It's hard to keep it watered here. Our wonderful volunteers help, but it's still a big job. So there we are. And next year, this will almost certainly bloom. Thanks so much for watching this segment, and we're going to move on to talking about hostas in a few minutes. Another type of plant that can easily be divided, well, maybe not easily, it's a fair amount of work, but certainly responds well to dividing, is the hosta. There are many, many types of hostas. This is a fairly plain one, and we have decided to move these hostas to another area of the garden. So I'm going to start by digging one up. Whereas with daylilies, you want to have at least 3 fans in order to get blooms. With a hosta, you really only need to have one nose coming up in order to have a viable plant that will expand. So I am going to dig. I haven't pre-dug this at all. Some larger hostas can be really challenging to get out of the ground. This is a smaller variety, so I'm hoping that is not the case. And like daylilies, hostas have a good root system. They don't have the fleshy roots like daylilies. And while I'm digging, I'll just talk about some of the other plants that are fairly good to divide. Things like echinacea divide fairly easily. Phlox are extremely easy to divide. They like to be moved around. In fact, they self-seed. Things that don't like to be or cannot be divided, poppies, oriental poppies, because they have a taproot, it's really not possible to divide them. Coral bells or heuchera are very fussy. Sometimes I have been able to make a division, but more often than not, it is not successful. So unfortunately, it means that you're probably going to have to buy the varieties that you want. Okay, so that came out quite nicely. If I wanted to, I could actually divide this further, but I don't think I'm going to today. I could divide it to this one, and then probably here, and another one there. And all 3 of those would be successful. So I'm going to take this down to where I'm going to move it to for now. It is just a temporary move. We're planning to do a whole new area of the park back in here, but we need to get some soil still, and we also need to dig out some of the maple roots that are there. So that's a project for later in the fall. Never a lack of things for a gardener to keep busy with. I dug about the right size of hole. Yeah, that's pretty good. I am going to fill it up with water, as I said, puddling it in. And this particular area of the garden really is quite dry. We're under a maple tree, and so only on a really nice rainy day does the water get through here. It's supposed to rain tomorrow. It's always best to try and do dividing on a cloudy day or in the evening so that the plants have a chance to settle in before it gets really hot. And to have a rainy day tomorrow is perfect. There we go. I'm just going to fill in around the edges with the soil from what was already here. Okay. Put the rest of the water on top. I'm going to step on it as I did on the daylilies after the camera was off. I'll give it a good step on to try and get rid of any air pockets in there. And there we go. All planted. That was fast. That's not always the case with hostas. There are hostas I have fought with. My favorite tool for dividing is a hori-hori knife, which I forgot to bring with me. It's a knife that's got a blade about that long, very stiff, and it's serrated, and so it's wonderful for chopping and down in between the sections of the hosta. There are certainly hostas that I've dug out that I would never have gotten out in any other way. So there we go, hosta planted, and it will be part of a group of hostas that move over to another area of the garden. Thank you for watching. We hope that you will join us for some of our next session of videos, which will be for our October meeting on October 14th. Bye-bye.